Next up, we have Jeff Julian, who's the founder and aficionado of Julian Farms, and he is doing small-scale organic farming, and he's going to talk about how Meadow has helped him build some of his stuff. And I'm actually really excited about this because I don't have any idea what he's going to talk about, so it's going to be cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, let's give you a little bit of background on me, and we'll just skip the agenda and talk about the fun stuff. I started .NET development in 2001, like most of you early adopters, right? So little kid, fresh out of high school, picking up, the beta 1, using config.web instead of web.config. If you know, you know. I remember going to my first conference, and I was so excited I could go out and smoke cigarettes with Dave Weiner and talk about SOAP and RSS, and then see Scott Gu introduce ASP+, and really get behind a platform. After that, a few years later, Microsoft kicks me off the blog community because I thought VB sucked, and I was very loud about defending that because C# is the best. And so they deleted my blog, and I got really mad, went home, and like you said, you can iterate quick in software, wrote Geeks with Blogs in 9 hours and launched it, right? And I'm saying this is a community where we don't care what people say, we can launch it. We grew to about 7,000 bloggers over the 10 years that we had, and it was pretty awesome. Started doing SharePoint, but before that I was really specialized in XML, and I was an MVP in those areas, consulting, and working on a rocks book. So I officially had my face on a book, and that was kind of fun. At the time, that was like the big deal, right? Could you get yourself on a cover of a rocks book? But then I disappeared from the developer community. It became annoying when we started reinventing the wheel to produce the exact same thing. It's like, hey, we've got this new technology. What's it do? The same thing. What do we got to do? Rewrite everything. Why? And so I went into the marketing space quite a bit. And so focused on building the marketing community, focused on starting podcasts and videos and writing a book in marketing, and really trying to adopt this world of content, because I'm a big believer that content really helps the masses and then also helps drive business. And so I spent my time running an agency, building software products for marketing teams, and then after a while, that becomes the same thing. They're just reinventing, doing the exact same thing. We're still talking about social media posts and blogs, and it's been over a decade now. Let's figure out something else, right? What's that new thing? So consolidated my company down to just me, and then bought a farm, right? And if you look at that picture, that doesn't look like a farm, right? It looks like a field and a bunch of trees. But we have 35 acres inside the Kansas City metro area. We are like the last agricultural plot in the city. When I spoke with the city managers, they're like, what, you're going to keep that a farm? You're not going to turn it into a subdivision? Like, oh, it's going to be awesome, right? And so we have 38 dairy goats right now, over 120 egg-laying chickens. We run pastured chickens, so where they live their best life, and a little tractor that we move every day to new grass. And we do 250 of those. We do turkeys for Thanksgiving, which is awesome to be able to have that pressure to say, oh, there's 50 families that are going to have your turkey for their Thanksgiving. You can't screw that up, right? And then we do bees in a natural approach. And so, yeah, what kind of farming background did I have? I grew up in a small town. That's it. Never did farming. So this is all new to me. And this is my buddy Moonshine. And that's the cool thing about having goats, is you get to hang out with baby goats all the time, and they are super fun. But if you look at the aerial view of the farm, it doesn't look like a farm. But 30 years ago, it was. And that whole back area at the bottom was a field. And there's actually some old farm components you can kind of see where a previous farm was. And then this is what the earth does when you stop using these farming practices that are causing so much disruption in the climate, that are causing so much carbon to be released. The earth will cover it back up when it's done with it. And so my job now is to find a way to work with the earth and figure out how we can bring animals in and actually make it great for the earth, great for the animals, and great for our consumers. And so how does that kind of work, and what lessons have I learned? One lesson I quickly learned is that what happens on the farm doesn't always stay on the farm. Meaning, if your animals get off your farm, that's your responsibility. If something walks out in the road and a truck hits it, you're paying for that truck. And then sometimes you're paying for a fine that's associated with that too. So it's very important that you have your eyes on the farm at all times. But I don't live on the farm yet, right? I live 5 miles down the road. So having a system in place to help me watch what's going on is critical. And because I'm a techie guy and because I can figure this stuff out, I said, hey, I'll just build some fun stuff. I watched Scott Hanselman talk about this cool Meadow chip and making lights blink. And I was like, hey, I can make lights blink too. But you get out to the farm and a blinking light doesn't do anything for you. You have to do other things, right? And so I flip on the live stream. I see Brian's face. He does the Sean Connery accent. So gets a little kick out of it. And then he's building PCBs, so I'm building PCBs. And start to produce some cool projects. But these are some of the common issues you'll see on a farm or a homestead. If you're starting to think about, hey, maybe we should produce our own food. If it's maybe the market garden side, or maybe it's the, just chickens, right? The price of eggs went through the roof. Maybe I should buy a chicken. Here's some of the things you'll need to know about. Loss of electricity is key. And electric fences don't work if you don't turn them on. And electric fences are how you keep your animals inside. It's also how you shock yourself and realize, like, we're all building electrical components until you've touched an electric fence and something metal at the same time and laid on the ground, hoping your heart still works. You don't really have that respect for electricity that you should have. Rain, floods, drought. We're dealing with a drought right now in Kansas. That is just, it's crazy, but I was on a farm 2 weeks ago that had some of the luscious green grass. Because of the way they handle their animals, they were able to continue to have feed for those animals when everyone else's fields look horrible. Parasites and disease, that's the scary part. Predators and then protected species. There are animals that will eat your animals that you can only watch it. You can't do anything about it. A hawk can come in and kill your animal and you can't touch it. $10,000 fine and potentially jail time. So it's like, if it's a bald eagle, that's cool. You can watch the bald eagle, right? This massive thing coming down. But a hawk, it's like, come on, right? Let me protect it. Neighbor pets. This is the worst one. Somebody's dog doesn't know that your goat is not food, and they will come in and try to attack it. Humans steal things. It's unfortunate. Birthing schedules happen. Animals get pregnant, and they don't tell you when they're about to go into labor. They just do it. And you'll wake up in the morning to go do the chores at 6 a.m. You look up, and there's a new animal on your farm. And you're like, oh, I got to handle this right now. But it's awesome because they're cute baby goats, and that's fun. Gets too hot, gets too cold. Fences need to be moved. Animals have to be moved, or they get that disease, those parasites, and they don't do things. Plants need water and ventilation. And the worst part, everything costs a lot of money. You cannot do this without spending a crazy amount of money. It's absolutely ridiculous how bad this industry is right now and how close we are to having completely unstable food supply in this country. So ag tech solutions, right? Technology can help solve this. There are going to be lots of people. We saw that graph, right? All this commercial IoT going on. Well, it's stupid expensive. Stupid expensive. We'll show some examples. And then everything, if it's a part, right, that does a specific thing, it only talks to itself. It only works in its own environment, so you can't interface with it. And it's unstable and unreliable. Those electric fence tools, they break. And now that electric fence turned off for no fault of your own. You actually turned it back on. But things break. They're very unstable. When that happens, failure kicks in. And if you're not a major commercial operation, all the IoT devices are in-person and contact interfaces. So you can't know when they're up or down. You don't know what's going on. It's either they worked or didn't work. Some examples of some of the things that you would have to deal with on a farm is an energizer for that electric fence, livestock management software, RFID readers to know which animal you're talking to. We unfortunately name our animals. That's one of the golden rules, is don't name the thing that you might have to potentially take to the farm, but you are the farm, so you have to kill it. And that's hard when it's named. But RFID readers, so you can know who you're talking to, scales to weigh things, environmental sensors to know what's going on, cameras, predator deterrence. All these things are some examples of how ag tech can work. So here's a case in point. About a month ago, this $600 device that I thought was super cool, and I could take this remote and turn on or off the fence just by touching the fence. So I could be a mile away from the Energizer, and I could take that tool, put it on there, and hit off, and it would turn it off, and then I could get over the fence. Great. That thing breaks. And guess what? They don't sell these at Farm Supply or Walmart or whatever, or Home Depot. This is a special order product, so now I have no electric fence. So what do I have to do? Well, I need the ability to turn it on or off, and I need the ability to know when it's on or off, so I have to make a different investment. I have to buy another one for $2,100 just so I can be able to go into the Bluetooth and turn it off. It's a bigger Energizer. It can handle more fence. The reason this one blew up is because it just wasn't able to do it. But now I have two, and that's one scenario. We've been talking about apiary, and this has been a fun project that we've been thinking about and designing, right? And this is another tool called Hive Genie, and they've got a sniffer, right? So they can smell, and then they actually have a counter where you can count the individual bees coming in. I'm like, come on, guys, this is a little bit nuts. But you can apply this to one hive, and it's $550. I have a friend who has 800 hives. Not possible to even deploy a subset of this in his environment, right? These things, I get it. You can do cool things, but that's just not feasible for people. To weigh an animal, $425, right? That's ridiculous. To move a chicken tractor, a piece of wood that has, a cage around it so that the flying birds don't eat your chickens, this wheel that hooks underneath it, $200. But if you don't have the upper body strength to move this massive thing, that wheel is priceless. But each one is $200. The ability to open your chicken door and let them out in the morning so you don't have to get up there, $125. And you can look at the design. It's a string, and it rolls that string up at a certain time, and then at the end of the day, it rolls that string down. That's a $125 device, people. I mean, come on, everybody. You get two if you pay right now with free shipping, right? So back to some of these lessons. First lesson, you see this trough right here? This is crazy. You can't buy that size of trough. What they do is they ship them, and the outer one's a little bit bigger, and then the one inside's a little bit smaller, the one inside's a little bit smaller, so that way they can stack them. But I can't go in and buy that same size, right? So you've got all this inconsistency to allow for freight to happen. It's still $200 for that piece of metal, but you get it home and you put it next to the one you already bought, and it's not the same size. Time is the real currency, and it's not just your time. It's literally chickens take 6 months to lay one egg at first. So if a hawk comes down, or in our case, a raccoon comes in, and you go to a concert for the first time, leaving the farm for a while, you go to a concert, you get home at 10 o'clock, and there are 18 dead birds with no heads in your backyard that were laying eggs. Because a raccoon does that. Why? Right? You start to hate the trash panda, and you start to catch the trash panda, and you realize that all that time, the 6 months to get more eggs, the ability to be able to, you have to lose customers because you can't produce eggs anymore for that amount. You can't just magically make it happen. I love that old adage of you can't make a baby with 9 women in 1 month. That it's the time restrictions on these things. It is going to take 9 months to make a baby. Fences shock when they turn on. That's a big one because you just don't know, because You don't go up to the fence, is it on, right? You just have to assume. Sometimes they snap really loud, and those are the awesome ones. But other times you just hope it's on. Predators don't attack when you're there. You're not sitting there, and all of a sudden a coyote comes out and starts to attack, and you've got to like wrestle it to the ground. You go home at night, and then in our case, camera goes off motion detecting. You see the coyote in there. We've got dogs out there to bark, but that's not necessarily good enough. We got to get in the car, drive out to the farm at 100 miles an hour, and try to stop things from happening because it's a farm. And so with that, how does the Meadow fit in? Well, it's not a toy, right? So when you look at some of these devices that people are excited about playing with, they just look like toys. And the software is toy software. All of us who've built software are like, oh, a scripting language to run it. That sounds awesome, right? It's like running WordPress for your own personal site when you're a hardcore .NET developer. It's like, it feels bad, right? But sometimes you have to do it. The team behind it is top notch. Every time I've had an issue, they've helped me. And every time I've had an issue, they usually caused it because they changed something. And we'll get into that down a little bit. And then the investors behind it, the fact that they raised the funds to keep this thing going, and it's not, just out of the pocket thing, is very important with the software company. And my favorite and the biggest one is this is not a Microsoft product. I have bought all this. I've stood in line for all this. I was the nerd with the spot watch, right? Look, you can tell the weather. It talks to the internet. Carrying around my Zune, even though I had an iPod. Wearing the band, thinking it was the next greatest thing. And then they just say, oh, yeah, by the way, we're not supporting it anymore. You're like, what the heck? Right? HoloLens. We bought the first HoloLens. We're walking around thinking we're the coolest things, right? Nope, dead. Microsoft Money was, and still, to this day, would be the best money management software for home users. They just cut it, right? And then Microsoft Bob. Once Melinda Gates and Bill got together, they can kill that product. I've always heard that's what she was working on, but that's more of a joke. They should have killed that one. But it's just not another Microsoft byproduct of innovation. They can't come in and kill it. Because if they could, they would, and we've seen that. So that's what's awesome about Meadow, and that's why I decided, hey, let's give this a try. So my first project I call Abraham, and the idea was that in the wintertime, fall, and early spring, your animals can't get green grass, and so you have to then either give them hay and other inputs, other grains, which are expensive. Because of all the droughts that are going on, hay's doubled in price because people in Montana have no hay, and people in Kansas are like, I'll just double the price and sell it to the people in Montana, right? We get it, it's a commercial world, but that makes the price of inputs go way up. So I wanted to find a way to bring that cost down. One of the cool ways you can do that is you can take barley seeds and put them in a bag and soak that bag overnight. And then after you do that, you take those seeds, put them on a tray, put some lights on it, artificial lights, keep the temperature 55 degrees or higher, and then water them once or twice a day for 7 days. And then out of that, we'll produce this massive grass pad about this tall and as wide as whatever your tray is, and it will turn, just with water, those 2 pounds, in this case, 2 pounds of seed, into 12 pounds of feed. So you're thinking, oh, wow, I could just take a week, do this every day, and now I've cut my costs down significantly on the feed. For me, as a new farmer in Kansas, that's awesome. Imagine globally, right? Imagine in places where, like in Africa, where maize or corn, other grains, are twice as expensive as it is here. But they still can't bring in chickens because if we export them chickens, they're twice as expensive as it would to be grow your own. So they have to produce food with very small margins. So a fodder system like this that was managed with an application and hardware could actually make it to where they could have a day job. And then with the low power inputs and some of those things, the automation would cause less interaction with that fodder system and the ability to actually grow. So let's take a look at what mine, sample prototype looks like. So you get this top chunk of grass is what happens at 7 days. And then there's just various stages Each day I need 4 trays, so then I need 7 times 4. So we have to have over 20 trays. Sometimes it's 8 days, just depending on how the circulation happens. I need a bucket, and then an air pump and a water pump, and I'm good to go. And then some lights in our case, but if you are closer to the equator, the sun's out all the time, you could actually use natural light. So this is Abraham. And we were talking about like using Spanish words. I just pick names out of the Bible, right? Because there's always something that they did, and I can say, well, Father Abraham had many sons, and so that's where Abraham came from. And so then we have, it controls air pump, controls a fan, controls a light, and controls the water. So with Meadow, I can go in, turn on relays at different times, and then and then say, hey, I need to water twice a day, but I need to run the fans every 15 minutes. And that helps on mold and other things. So that's my version of Project Lab, because Project Lab didn't exist. So watching Brian over here building boards, and then I'm over here building boards, shipping them off 2 weeks later, a week later they come, and then Brian said I need to buy this, so I bought this, and I'm in there soldering and doing all these things, building my own PCBs and boards. And so the guy in the blue one in the middle has some of the I2C acceleration, and then a temperature and humidity sensor, and just allows me to expose some different ports and communicate with different devices, because exactly the solution that Project Lab created was not available at the time, but needed to be available for somebody like me. And so this is what fodder looks like up close. So it's this giant set of roots. You can see kind of a seed pad where some seeds don't grow, and then this grass. So amazing how the design of this planet works, that just water can turn those seeds into that. New nutrients come out of the water and the seed that didn't exist before, just with time and sunlight. Solar power is an amazing thing on the farm. And in fact, it's the most important thing on a farm, being able to capture solar in your grass or in your plants and animals and change things. And so that's what it looks like when chickens enjoy the fodder. The goats like the fodder. You could feed fodder to cattle. Our donkey really likes the fodder, so he's the first one that gets access to it because he's a guardian for the boy goats. And so it's pretty fun. Another quick project that I did was what I call Isaiah, the messenger. It can it takes 3 outputs of 120 volts or 110 volts, and then 1 output of 12 volt. And then I can programmatically turn on or off those relays. So think about what Alexa does, but from a remote situation where I'm at home and I can say, turn that on or turn that off, or even assign a schedule to it to turn her on or off. And that's been a great solution. Case in point, it takes $4,000 worth of batteries, not solar panels, just batteries, not controllers, charge controllers, just batteries, not inverters to turn that battery power into 120 volt, just batteries to run 1 heat lamp for an entire day. About $10,000 of total solar investment to run 1 heat lamp for an entire day. But with the remote control, and in the future with a sensor that could go in here and tell it what the temperature is, I could turn that light off when it's not needed. Because the way this works is that it just turns on. But I just need to make sure when it's -6 degrees in Kansas randomly, that these babies stay warm and that mom stays warm. And so you can use gas power generation and other things, but Isaiah could turn that light on or off and make it to where that heat lamp would stay on throughout the night. Because once the batteries get too low, you just have to turn them off or you destroy the whole system. So that's another solution that has been very beneficial on the farm. Eggs will freeze. If it gets below freezing, they'll crack and freeze and split open, so you can heat those eggs that are laying in until you get time to get in there and pick it up. You can turn on artificial lights in your chicken coop 2 hours early and 2 hours later in the winter, and your chickens will double production because they think it's a normal day. And not because the egg cycle happens based off of the amount of time that they're moving around instead of hibernating or standing up on there. So great things that Meadow can do. From a retrospective, the biggest pain point has been the framework and the API changed too much, too dramatically. And this is one of those empathy points. I bought my son a hat kit. He was so excited. He takes the hat kit out. He gets out. It makes me tear up. Gets excited. Can't deploy to it. Loses interest. And hasn't picked it up since. And as a proud papa who wants his son to be a programmer, right? That sucked. Deployment is not easy. Taking these boxes back into the house or ripping out boards and replacing, that's been just a huge pain. And you will get frustrated and walk away from the whole dang thing, right? Because of that iterative process. So as developers, even though it's beta, we have to be certain that we know real people are doing this stuff, and take more consideration into that, even when we're building products in that beta phase. But the minute they launched the release candidate, everything started to get so much better. This became a real product. Core Compute actually gave me the vision to say, oh, okay, this is how I can deploy this to other people, not just this weird thing with a bunch of wires, right? Because you open up products, like you look inside and it's just a bunch of wires. And you're like, okay, I guess that's how we have to design it. But no, really, we can have design. And if you have somebody who's coaching you through that PCB, like Max Headroom or Brian was, right, the talking head, then that's amazing, right? It's not that bad. Like you said, the hardware part is not the hardest thing to do. And so, you know, when we're thinking about applying these applications long-term, some of these great dashboards that we're talking about, these are going to be the game changers, right? This is the TV on my wall in my office, right? I'm watching constantly how much solar is coming in here, and then what the weather looks like, how much rain we're getting, what the, you know, all these different things, because everything that's happening on the farm has to do with weather. I've learned that like early on, and then if I don't have power, I'm in trouble. And that's an example of me pulling in Abraham to apply a software update, right? And it's like all of a sudden your desk becomes this monster thing and you're pushing it. It's just no fun. So what's in development for us, and I know I'm like way over time, I'm sorry. Apiary, we're excited about that. Swarm box monitoring for the bees. Bees are like, Brian's learning this too from people. Most commercial beekeepers just let the bees die every year. And they're just like, whatever, we'll buy new, we'll buy new. And we're all talking about, oh my God, the bees are gonna here, like the whole world's not gonna be able to pollinate food and do all this stuff. And nobody's trying to keep them alive. So let's figure out how we can attract better bees. Let's figure out how we can make sure that they're okay and have the appropriate environment. And then let's figure out how we can multiply them. So queenery and detection is a big one. Fence monitoring, know when that fence is off, because I have the ability to go out and buy that $2,100 fence tool, but there are so many farmers that is how much profit they made the year, and they still have another job, and that's just not possible. So we have to come up with better tools and cheaper tools for that to happen. Scales and RFID, unified sensors, what they're doing with Project Lab, but on a larger long distance scale with cords in longer buses. So I can say, okay, I just need a humidity and temperature sensor. I need to plug this into the solution. Greenhouse automation, more hydroponics, being able to have a network on the farm. You can't just have a Wi-Fi router and hope it gets to 35 acres. It's just not going to do it. And then a dashboard, right? This is one that everybody wants a dashboard for their life, right? I want to look at something and see all the datas. And then when I'm not around that, I want to get notifications of what's going on, but I just need to be able to see a live alert of what's going on the farm. And so that's what's going on this year. Thanks a lot.